Hey, everybody. I am here with Wes Hurley, who is the writer, director, and possibly producer too. I may have lost track of all the things he does.
One of
Uh,
the producers.
the what?
One of the producers.
One of the producers for I guess we'll say a semi-autobiographical film called Potato Dreams of America. And I'm just going to turn this over. As I was just mentioning offline, I had seen the VR version, which was just called Potato Dreams. And then you also have a short film, right, called Little Potato.
Yeah.
So you've told this story in a couple of different ways and a couple of different lengths. So let's first lay out the story. What is Potato Dreams of America about?
Yeah. So the feature, it's a dark comedy. It's a very faithfully autobiographical recount of my growing up gay in the USSR in the late 80s and early 90s. And then coming over to the United States as an immigrant with my mom, who became a mail order bride. So that's in the late 90s. So it kind of spans, several decades and two different continents. Um, yeah. And it's, I like to say 99%, true to everything that happened in my
Well,
life.
there's got to be a little dramatic license, but yeah, and I also want to say I think it very obviously, uh, maybe sadly, very timely right now. I think there's a lot we don't in America understand about Russia and about the Russian people, and it's again trying to make sure that we don't confuse a government with the people that are living under it. So so let us get there. I mean, you again, youth at the near the end of the so-called Soviet Union. So let's talk a little bit about that experience.
A very dramatic, exciting time. Things were rapidly. My family was very anti-communist and was very welcoming to the changes that were happening in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union finally disintegrated. But then things kind of started to go south, and, we realized they weren't getting better. They were kind of things, the corruption and crime and poverty were really out of control. Um, we left right before Putin came to power, so I don't go into that in the film, but
Yeah, but I think that one of the things we could say is my recollection is off of the VR experience, which was if anybody gets a chance to see this, it was so incredibly well done.
thank
That basically the face of power changes its names,
you. Hmm.
uh, but not its methods and what its motivations really are. So I thought it was really insightful from that. So I'm very excited to see this film kind of drawn out in more of a, as you say, a darkly comic way. Uh, and I appreciate that. How did you hold on to your sense of humor in what was clearly, you know, you've had some interesting, to say the least, circumstances in your life?
Yeah, the subject matter of the film, it gets pretty dark. I personally, as an audience member, I feel like I'm always disarmed more by comedy as opposed to things that takes, stories that take themselves like 100% seriously. And so, yeah, I just see humor as a way to disarm the audience. It's also how, I was raised. My mom has this really dark sense of humor, very biting, and it's part of sort of the survival mechanism of Russia at the time too. So it was really important for me that the film captures that sensibility and that sense of humor.
And certainly before you came over here, I think one of the points was that somehow American television, the sitcoms, were giving you this view. I would also say, in some kind of a timely way, this is echoed by Marvel with WandaVision on Disney Plus.
Mhm.
But what is it about those that were kind of giving you that hope, and then I think drove you to become a filmmaker?
Yeah, the early American films that I was exposed to. well, not early. There were early for me. My early
Yeah.
experiences of American film were, um, movies made in the '90s and early '90s and late '80s. Movies like Ghost and Sister Act and Labyrinth that I have the poster of above. Um, Big Business. Lots of sort of comedies. Films that tend to be more hopeful and have happy endings. And I have to say, I think we sometimes, sort of the serious critics and so on, they don't take those genres very seriously and just see them as, fluff. But in places where life is really hard for people, this kind of lighthearted entertainment with hopeful stories and hopeful endings, um, was the way that people survive. It's a way to escape. So I really appreciated those films growing up. And the film it's this film, Potato Dreams of America, I mean, it sort of comments on that in different ways, in subtle ways, I hope, referencing that style of, like, late '80s, early '90s Hollywood films with the soundtrack and certain, certain tonal choices that I wanted to have in the film.
Yeah, and just I should have called this out up front. It comes out on home video. I think, or rather, I should say Blu-ray on June 23rd. But I think it's available now on video on demand. Correct?
It is. It's available on DVD and video on demand. And then at the end of this month, I'm really excited about the Vinegar Syndrome
That's it. Okay.
edition Blu-ray, which has a ton of special features and a beautiful original cover art and all that stuff that they do well.
Yes, they do. They put together great packages. So I would ask then, since I had experienced a version of this story in VR, and there is a short, can you talk about why you chose to tell it in these different ways, this evolution to getting to the feature film?
Yeah, so initially this wasn't my intention. I wrote the screenplay for the feature many years ago, about 8 years ago, and it was just very challenging to make a film. It was challenging to raise money for it. It was also challenging in the way that I experienced a lot of sort of gaslighting, in the film industry, where people would come on board as producers and promise big budgets and big stars, and then nothing would happen. And so it just went through many different iterations. And um, as I was going through that process, I got a small grant, from a Seattle arts granting organization, and I ended up making the short doc Little Potato and a short VR piece Potato Dreams. And my goal with those was to raise the profile of this story and this project, and hopefully help me make the feature eventually. And fortunately, what happened was, they became really, really successful in their own right, and Little Potato West and Potato Dream screened at a lot of festivals. So it did pay off in a way, as sort of this, the short pieces were sort of like in my mind for the feature, and something that I could leverage to help make the feature happen.
And in a way, it's almost like, while you have the Potato Dreams of America, your hard work, your perseverance, if I can be cliched, you've lived the American dream. And so, at a time when we're kind of divided, and we're also, on the precipice, I hate to say, a war with your native country. Is there, what could you say about the American dream that has worked? That has worked for you, and the optimism.
Yeah, I mean, I think I represent a lot of immigrants. I mean, not everybody maybe, but a lot of immigrants that I know whose experience of American dream is that it's very much true, it's very much alive, and people who come here and they work hard and they believe in themselves and they strive to improve their lives, they're able to succeed. And so that's been my experience and my mom's experience, and so that was really important. One of the reasons why I wanted to tell this story, and have this film out, is to, have this immigrant's perspective on the American dream and the fact that it's very much still alive. I believe.
And what's next in your step on this journey?
Well, I'm excited. The Dark Star is our distributor for Potato Drips of America. They also picked up my series called Capitol Hill, which is a comedy uh, parody of 1970s American TV shows.
Okay, looking
So,
forward to that.
going to be happening with it, but hopefully, released on VOD and Blu-ray as well at some point. And then I'm writing a bunch of projects. I love horror, so I would love to explore that in the future. And yeah,
Yeah, well, we look forward to that. Thank you so much for taking time today. And it's again, Potato Dreams of America, available on video on demand. I'm going to say honestly, I'm going to hold out for that Vinegar Syndrome release, because now that I've started buying too many DVDs from Vinegar Syndrome, I can't. They're the way to go. It's absolutely the way to go.
it's a
So.
dangerous fiction. I can tell you. I think
Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet videos. And remember, use your powers for good.